Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Puget Sound Tactical. Lately, I have really been into gravity knives. So today, let's take a few minutes to take a look at the three most common types of gravity knife patterns. Let's start with this one, which is probably the most common, most recognizable gravity knife pattern. This is a Riot Axle. And the way you work this knife is to open the chassis and just let gravity work its magic. Let the blade drop out. That's it. So this knife is actually, in my opinion, the safest among the three. Because when you're operating this knife, your fingers are completely out of the path of the blade. So it's very finger safe. And also, this is a Gen 2 model. So the Gen 2 model compared to the first generation, it has the addition of this slider lock, which keeps the chassis locked in open or closed position. And it has added a deep carry pocket clip. These are very simple additions, but they do make this knife practical for EDC. Again, this is a Riot Axle. The next one is a little bit unusual. This one is by Ashwell Steel, and this particular pattern is called Paragon. And the way you work this knife is to pinch this oversized pivot. It's actually kind of a push button. You can push in from both sides. And when you do, the whole chassis open in the middle. And for this knife, you need to make sure you're holding it correctly, the right direction. So the pocket clip should be facing away from you. And what you want to do is to pinch the chassis completely open and let the blade drop out by gravity. So this knife, as you can see, compared to the Riot Axle, is a little bit more dangerous because the blade actually swings open and close. So if your fingers are not out of the way, you could get pinched or cut. And in addition, this knife has a dagger blade, which is even more unusual for a folding knife. Most folding knife has just one cutting edge. So I guess that's the perk. You get a gravity knife with a dagger blade, but it has the slight risk of cutting your finger if you don't know how to operate it. But nonetheless, I really like this gravity knife. It's very fidgety, very satisfying. Practical for EDC? Maybe not. It's a little bit big and chunky, even in closed position. All right, let's move on. Finally, let's take a look at this particular gravity knife. I think you can call this a gravity knife. But in a second, you will see this is actually kind of a cross between a gravity knife and a balisong. You'll see what I mean in just a second. This particular knife is by a Russian knife maker, a Tropos. And this pattern is called a Tropos Trapper. So this is definitely not a traditional slip joint trapper pattern. I think the reason they're calling this trapper is because of the blade shape. It's actually a pretty good blade. It's very thin, very slicey. So it's a pretty practical EDC knife from a blade perspective. But as you can see, the way you operate this knife is not most obvious. You have to open this cover and let the blade swing out. What you want to do is to kind of swing out the blade and close the cover at the same time in one swift motion. Again, compared to the Riot Axle, where it's completely finger safe, this knife, similar to the Paragon, has a slight risk of getting your fingers in the way. Nonetheless, still a very fun, very fascinating knife. Thank you for visiting. Please subscribe and like.